I'm here today with Manuel Clayton, St. Luke's Minister of Music, and we're going to do an interview with him. I believe he has a very interesting story to tell, and it starts in faraway places. So Manuel, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
And I'm very glad for your willingness to do this.
Thank you.
I know that our members have just love and appreciate you, and I don't think they all know your whole story. So that's what we're about to tell today.
Okay.
So Manuel, you, as I mentioned, started far, far away. You were born in Argentina.
In Argentina, yeah. Well, I originally from Argentina. I was born in a city called La Plata, but my story is a little complicated at the beginning because I was adopted. Um, so for a long time, I thought that my parents were my birth parents, but they weren't. They were my adopted parents.
Huh.
But with time, I was able also to meet my birth parents, and that time, it was always a secret. But thank goodness now it's not that way. But that was my upbringing. It was a little complicated. It was not. I didn't grow up in a traditional family, like you can call mom and dad and siblings. It was a little bit more complicated for me.
Were you surprised when you found out that your parents weren't your birth parents?
Yeah, it was difficult for me. It was very difficult. So and then life gets all of these turns, and I became an adopted parent. So from my experience, I wanted my son to have a better experience than one that I had. So I try from the very beginning to be open about it, and that he knows where he comes from and who their birth parents are and where they are. Nothing was a secret, and then it was much healthier from the very beginning. So,
Uh-huh. Well, I can remember when we were holding outdoor services. Do you remember that during COVID?
oh yes,
And you told about your son and about your son's birth parents, and then of course you're the adoptive parents. And I can remember the all of the people that were there attending had tears coming down their out of their eyes, and it's just a beautiful
it was
story.
it was a miracle, really, because in that time at the night and that time we didn't have the privilege to have marriage, and so we have um, a celebration with our friends and families. It was just celebrating a union, but in that time we had civil union, so we went there, and it was in 2000, and we had our commitment ceremony in October 20th, 21st, and then we went to 2000, right? And then we went to, as a honeymoon, we went to Vermont and had our civil union there
Uh-huh.
in October 23rd. And then, and that was the only, in that time, that was the only place that we gave something, a document or something to couple like me,
Uh-huh.
like us.
Uh-huh.
And but that started it another venture because later on in 2006 we were lucky to be chosen to be parents, and so we flew to North Carolina and we picked up Eric, and he was only 2 day old, and that's is how our adventure as parents started.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we're jumping way ahead.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that. But let's go back to Argentina for just a little bit. Uh, Now, Manuel, like Ashley and like myself, you didn't start out as an Episcopalian.
No, no. I actually grew up LDS, and so the upbringings since very young, and you probably know this. I um, I just had s- uh, I don't know how to express this, but I really had experience to be close to God from since I was a child. I did my prayers, and I know that God existed, and that concept came from my faith that I grew up, and it's from a very young. I felt that that was an important part of my life, and then that I knew that I was a child of God. That's what
Yeah.
I knew that from the beginning.
Question. So your adoptive parents in Argentina were already LDS.
Yeah, most of my family were.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they were, and so I grew up in the faith, and that it occupied a big part of my life, and of course I have dreams, and I have like a bucket list of things that I would like to do and with my life, and one of them it was I wanted to be a musician, and one thing that was when I was there in Argentina, I was 12 when I was called to be the music director, and my in that time it was a branch, because no one knew how to read music, and I was the only one. So um, my priest he picked me to be the music director at a young age. So I developed a choir, and I had that experience since I was a kid, and then that is that experience I think is what make these strong ties with church,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and is the experience of being a music director at just a young age.
Yeah. Well, that was a question that I had. When did you become interested in music? So this kind of answers that question. I do have to say something for the people that are watching. When Manuel says that it was a branch that he was in the LDS church, there are wards and there are branches. And a branch is generally a smaller group of members, and it's organized a little bit
Yeah,
differently. But
small parish.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
small parish.
Well, in the Episcopal Church, it would be the same as we're a parish.
Yeah,
We have mission churches
yeah. Let's take a
in the
mission.
diocese,
Yes,
and they're smaller
okay.
and more dependent on the diocese. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so you're the music director. Uh, the uh, and as you did that, now did you play musical instruments at that time, or?
Yeah, I play the accordion because what happens is my family they were musical. I mean, I remember to have an accordion. We didn't have a piano, but then I wanted to sing with a choir, and my mom noticed that I was not singing in tune, so she sent me to the music conservatory to study, and it was 1 hour away from by train. So after school, I would go to this place, and that's where I started studying music. But we didn't have a piano, but we had an accordion, so we put the accordion horizontally,
Oh,
and then my
well,
sibling we
how
take
did you?
turns. My sibling will push the willows, and I will play. My siblings also practice that way too.
Uh-huh.
Until one day, come back from school, and my mom um, bought a piano for us.
Wow.
And I remember that was very expensive for them to have a piano like that. We were the only kids in the neighborhood that had a piano, and so I remember being so excited. I started playing until my mom said, "Well, it's time to go to bed." But yeah, I was excited about that. Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah.
That really is. So, so it sounds like you had a pretty good life in Argentina.
I did. I did. I had a lot of dreams though that I don't know if I stayed there, I will be able to get them because I wanted to live from music, and I wanted to have a family, and I I wanted to travel and know the world. I wanted to learn languages, and so somehow, if I would stay there, I probably would not be able to accomplish everything that I
Uh-huh.
wanted. It
Well,
was.
that brings us to the next topic I would like to discuss with you. Can you tell us about leaving Argentina? What took
Yeah,
you away from Argentina and what you were
it
going to do?
was about, I in Argentina, and that when I was young, we had to the young men had to go to the military. It was mandatory, and so I had to go to the military, and that was difficult. The training. So I was in the infantry 25 in Chubut, which is a province in the Patagonia. So I served 1 year there, and because I had good behavior, they let me go a little earlier than my companions. And then after that, I went for a mission and to a Misiones mission for 2 years for the LDS Church. And I served there. And when I was there, I met some of my companions were American, and and so they, whenever possible, I will help with the music in my mission.
Uh-huh.
So they say, "Wow, you are talented. You should go to BYU." And he said, "I didn't know what BYU was, and it's LDS University in Provo, Utah." So that is one of my companions informed me about that there is programs. They have a very good music program, and so he said you should apply to see if they can help you to get there. And well, anyways, I start thinking on the possibility to come to the U.S. To study music, um, and so when I finished my mission, I mentioned to my parents my desire to come, and they were trying to help me, to. But the thing is, I didn't speak any English, so I had to take a course before I got accepted to the university, and you had to pass a test. It's called TOEFL test, and you had to get 500 points. I didn't have, so I had 6 months to pass the test. So I came in January 1993 at Utah and took the course, and well, in 6 months, and I passed with 513 points, just barely. It was not
Still.
good, but that made me eligible to get into the school, and so I got into BYU, and I had good grades in high school, so that helped me, and so I was fortunate and my parents were able to help me to come here. I don't know, they did a lot of sacrifice for me because that was a lot for him to send me here,
Yes.
and they sacrificed a lot for me to be here. So I knew that, and so I did the best I could to honor their sacrifice. Um, so that's how we ended up in Utah, and well, that is until I graduated, and so my parents didn't really want me to be a musician. They want me to be a physician. So that was a problem. So
Typical parents. Typical
parents. So
parents.
and they said so I became a piano performance pre-med. Just for honor my parents. I said I will take all my pre-med classes just in case if I cannot make it a living with music. And but yes, that's how I graduated and and got here to Utah.
Wow. Wow. Well, uh, when did you meet Ted?
Well, that was well. I was at BYU. Is I came with a lot of questions about my religion, and I have questions about the polygamy, about why I was feeling different. No, I wanted to have a family. That was a goal of mine. Um, but then I was attracted to men, and I said, how that come from? If it doesn't match with our teachings and my religion, and that is sparked more questions. And since I didn't get the answers that I was looking in the university, my questions were not well received. Some professors said I was asking not faith promoting questions,
Oh,
and that were not they were not placed well, so they were not well received. So I start questioning about my faith, and um, so that it's complicated. But with that stir other questions, and I realized that if I wanted to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish and all the goals that I wanted to do and feel good about myself, because I thought that uh, I didn't, I thought that I was doing the right thing, and I decided, okay, this is not for me, and it was a tough decision. It didn't come from one day to the next day. It was something that it was a tough decision for me. But by the time I graduated from BYU, I knew that I had to leave this church and find my way towards happiness, because eventually that's what I wanted, you to be happy.
mhm.
And so, and that's how I met Ted in Salt Lake City when I moved after BYU. And with a friend, we went dancing, and he was there, and I have a business card, and I give that to him. And then a few days or later, he called me, and we started dating, and we had a lot of things in common. He was also LDS. I mean, he also served a mission, and so we had a lot of things in common. So our relationship started finding a lot of things in common. And one of the things is that he also wanted to have a family. And, and so we have a few things that were in common, and other things were totally different. But the most important things we have in common. So that helped our relationship to grow to the point then that we got engaged after a year, and we decided to formalize our union by having a ceremony and then going to Vermont and
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
coming out to our families. He already was out, but I had to come out to my family, and it was a very it was a very difficult time. But at the end, I'm glad that I did it, and but it was not easy at that time.
Well, I think you're very brave for doing it at that point in your life. I know for myself, I started having doubts about the LDS Church when I was on my mission,
Mm,
and just a variety of issues
yeah,
the questions that could not be answered.
yeah,
And but it took me until I was 38 years old before I left.
yeah.
But you did it much earlier.
Oh, yes.
So I don't know what that says about me, but I
No,
think you're a very brave person.
thank you. Yeah, it was difficult because your religion is the way that you grew up, and it's a strong tie with your. But one thing though is that I'm very thankful for the opportunity to have um, the the faith of God never disappear. I knew that God was there. It was not in the same way that they taught me that God looks like. It evolved with through time.
Yeah.
But the concept of God remained, and it changed it the way that I picture it. But
Mhm.
I knew that God was in my life.
Okay. Well, this brings us. This is a good point to ask this question. When did you become familiar with the Episcopal Church?
It was when I went. I my first job after I graduated was uh, to work as a piano tuner, but also I work as a piano accompanist for the Salt Lake Men's Choir,
Ah,
which is a gay choir in Salt Lake, and that was my first job as a pianist. And we went to a concert in San Diego, and we sung in this cathedral. I don't remember what is the name of the cathedral, but that was an Episcopal cathedral in San Diego. And I remember being in the service, and the priest who was officiating, he invited everybody to the Holy Communion. And he said, everybody can come. And I said, are you sure? I said, I'm gay. I don't, but something I felt welcome uh, that I had to do it, and I did it. I went in, and I remember that feeling. I still can remember. That was like that. God never left me really, and that was the first time I felt like I'm coming back, you know.
uh-huh.
And that was like a welcome card for me. And that was the first. That feeling is what brought me back again to God. And this is my first contact with the Episcopal Church. And then when I heard there was an opening, and I was teaching piano here in Park City, and Mary Parsons' children, I was teaching them piano, and she told me, Manuel, there is an opening in my church to be a music director, so you should apply. And then I came and have an interview with Father Charles and at time, but I told him that I was in a relationship, and then if that is a problem, I just want them to know from the very beginning that I want them to know because is part of me already. And I remember for example, that is not a problem for us here. And when I got the job, and since that day, that's how um, I started my job here in St. Luke's, and as a minister of music, and learning about the the liturgy and the music, and that took me a long time to know what being a minister of music is. Um, and I think it's more than just being the director of music because it involves more things. Um, it's a ministry,
Mm-hmm.
and so that took me a long time. And now that I've been working for more than 20 years, I have more experience and I learn a lot. And but that's how I end up here at St. Luke's.
Wow. Wow. So, okay, you just answered a whole bunch of my questions. Just a second. So here's a question. The music you select is very relevant to every sermon topic. So how do you choose the music that will be performed on any given Sunday?
Well, that, like I said, that took a long time of, when I started working as a minister of music, um, I had to learn a lot of things, the liturgy, the church calendar, and then I realized that there were people that liked contemporary music. There are other people that wanted to do hymns, more traditional, and there were some people were praise music, some people wanted taizé, and I arrived when the St. Luke's had two services, and they had one that was traditional, what it was um, a more contemporary, but then all merge in one service. So my challenge when I came is I had to serve to all of these tastes of music, and how can I combine them, and so everybody feels what they need to feel.
Hmm.
And that is when it became took a lot of um, decisions taken and experimenting with this and that. And from all of this, I realized, you know, the, what is the most important here is the message. Is a message that our spiritual leader is representing the message that God wants us to listen. And so that became my focus then. And he said, what is what God wants us to listen? And that is the message. And the music will match that message, regardless if it's traditional or contemporary or taise. If the message is the center of our worship, then that is what my mission became, to be able to capture that message in form of music. It will give us another opportunity to listen the words of God, and people will be enriched after the service for listening this message and take it from home to home and there to their daily life during the week. So that is it helped me a lot in our ministry. And that's what I do. And sometimes, I wrote a little article about it, but it really, I read the scriptures, all the readings, and try to find a connector, a message. And sometimes it can go different ways. And then um, I need to ask for help and guidance. And that became an spiritual experience for me, because then I need to pray, I need to find the answer where this one is going, and then I ask for help to God, and I get them. I get the answer, and sometimes it's by searching music and reading and listening, and I'm now, thank goodness we have a lot of materials now online. Our research is more simple. No,
Uh-huh.
no.
I'm remembering. I'm remembering a specific instance which illustrates, I think, what you're talking about. Do you remember the first Sunday that Akshay sang with the choir?
Yeah,
Okay, Akshay and Court on that day, right here in front of the piano, sang a song called "Let the Children Come,"
yeah, yeah.
and uh, I believe that was the reflection music.
It was, I think.
Yeah,
You think.
and then afterwards, when we were having the prayers of the people. Now, Sandra, Reverend Deacon Sandra, gave the sermon that day.
Mm,
And uh, during the prayers of the people, whoever was doing the prayers of the people said, "Think of I can't remember what the words are, but think of what you're grateful for." And Deacon Sandra jumped up and said, "I have to tell you this. That song, the reflection song, was perfect because it fit right with my sermon. But
yeah.
I have to tell you, I never talked with Manuel beforehand about it."
Mm, yeah.
And she said, "That's how God works."
Yes, I believe so. I believe so because um, it really it's a connection, a spiritual connection, and it's not strange. It just comes naturally, because we are reading the same message. And to me, if you reflect in the scriptures, um, and you will find it there. And the inspiration comes from somewhere, and it will come from God.
Mhm.
It's like if you are open, it will come, right? If you're open even a little, it will come to you.
Right.
It's just a matter to, I think the answers are inside of us, We just need to let it open a little bit, by um, praying or reflecting and reading, doing research, involve all your senses, no? And then I think you will find the answer you're looking for.
Hmm. Well, you certainly do find the answers. I I have I have an opportunity that not very many people have, and that's that I get here ahead of time at church to set up the microphones and make sure the choir can be heard and all of that. So I get to sit here in the sanctuary while you're practicing. I'm always amazed
It
at
is.
the I'm amazed at two things. Number one, I'm amazed that you only practice for about an hour, if that, and yet when the choir performs, it's like they've been practicing forever.
And I think it's a teamwork, right?
Uh-huh.
That's another thing the minister of music has to recognize that you cannot do this by yourself. You have to recognize the abilities and the talents and the ministries of other people and work together under the same message that I'm talking to you about. And then um, and help others to do their ministry under the same message.
Hmm.
And then everybody can participate. And I had that experience when I was in college. I always tell them that I felt that I was like the Batman of the Justice League because all my classmates were more talented than me in many different ways, my classmates. However, um, I can contribute in, with the gift that God gives me, and I can be an instrument in His hand using the talents that I have. They are not the same as other people's talents, and we have in our congregation so talented people, and so they had the opportunity to serve God with their with their talents. And so my ministry is to give them the opportunity, and coordinate all our work. So we don't step with each other work, but we cooperate together. And as a result, we can serve better to our people in our congregations if we all together do it in an organized way and under one message, and so that's how it works for
Uh-huh.
us.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So, uh, your experience with Father Charles and Mother Ashley, uh, do they ever ask you for specific songs that they would like you to do?
Well, it depends. For instance, there are some special occasions, that they wanted specific music, and um, but in general, they trusted me that I will um, choose the music, and but that comes after we work together, because I really want to honor our leaders, our shepherd, our pastor. I don't want to have the music be separate from the message. I want them to be one. So in order to do that, I need to know my pastor, and I need to know their mission, their ministry, and embrace that ministry and support the ministry with music. So when we are on the same page, so Father Charles and Mother Ashley will give me uh, that trust, and I will work accordingly.
Hmm.
But I think it's important to establish that connection, so we can work together again as a team, right? and then and that evolves through years, right, of working together, that we get to know each other, and I get to know what our pastor wants us in what direction wants us to go.
Mhm.
For me, it's important because I work under Father Charles and Mary Archie, but also under Peter when he was with us as an interim pastor,
Mhm.
um, and Jessica briefly, because she was there
Right.
too, and sometimes we had to work by ourselves, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But anyways, but it's all about trying to work together. No, I think that's important.
Uh-huh. You know, I work on the diocesan vitality initiative team, and uh, in one of the meetings we were holding, Bishop Phyllis asked all of us, said, "Well, what is vitality? What is vitality?" And we all just sat there and looked at each other for a minute, and people started coming up with answers. And I'm sitting there thinking, and I said, "You know what vitality is? A parish has vitality. The diocese has vitality. We personally have vitality when we're surprised by something, and then that surprise leads to appreciation and then wanting to be part of that thing."
Mhm.
And I, your music, and the choir, you and the choir, surprise and amaze me constantly.
Mm.
Uh, I especially like the postlude music because you feel a little bit freer at that time sometimes. Uh, but I can remember one song, and I can't remember the name of the song, but the the this was the postlude, and the choir sang it, and at the very end there was this really really powerful crescendo, and 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 then the people that were listening at that time started clapping, and there were two reactions that the choir members had. Uh, uh, Darla had this big smile on her face. Felicia went, whew, and and Court patted Darla. I mean, Darla really let loose, and it was incredible. But the congregation, it just blew all of us away. I do know something. I know something, and you I'll let you know what it is. Uh, I don't remember whether it was last Sunday or the Sunday before that. The postlude that the choir did was "Never Enough."
Oh yeah,
Okay.
for Mother's Day.
Yes, "Never Enough." And I thought to myself, I've heard that song before,
Yeah.
and I couldn't remember where. And then it occurred to me that it comes from a musical called The Greatest Showman.
Yeah.
And the reason that I remember that is we had my granddaughter. She was having some problems, and my son asked if we would talk to her and be with her. But while she was at our house, we asked her if she wanted to watch a movie, and she says, "I would. I want to watch The Greatest Showman." So we watched it downstairs on our big screen TV, and that's why I remember that song. But something else I remember from that night is that at the end, when they were doing the closing credits for the movie, and they
Yes,
were playing
yeah.
music, my granddaughter and I just got carried away, and we jumped up. We have a really solid table in front of the sofa, between the sofa and the television. We jumped up on that table and we start dancing around and everything. It was just incredible. But I do remember that song. And you do that every once in a while.
Yeah, I think it's just depends on the occasion,
Uh-huh.
and then also this is always I share with the choir is, you know, we are painting an art here, and each person will make that a meaning that is especially for them.
Uh-huh.
You know, the music it works like a visual art as well. You know, you sing, but there are people that means different things for each of them, depending on their own experience at the moment. So, so that is why I always like to listen their experiences, you know,
Uh-huh.
because it's different from our experiences, you know, and but each of the parishioner or the visitor will have a different, react differently about the same music that we are doing for everybody. And some will bring memories of when they were young. For some, will be the lyrics touch them in some way. And sometimes it's just the music that makes them to go to their youth and think about their youth and other times of their life. Or some, you know, the Spirit of God acts in different ways for everybody, you know, in different ways for different people, and that is what is exciting and interesting about music and arts in general,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
Manuel, I have one last question for you, and you've kind of answered it, but you may want to expand on it a little bit. The question is this: does being the minister of music for St. Luke's affect you in any way with your spirituality?
yeah, of course. Um, you know, it really affects me in many different ways, and I already talked to you about my mm, choosing music, but also by working with people. Um, and also realizing is, and I'm not perfect by any means, I'm always learning, you know, that every person is important. If it's important for God, you know, it's important, it should be important for each of us. And so I and think about this hymn that we sing is all are welcome. And I think about that. You know, the people should be they should feel welcome. You know, when they partake communion, when they come to church, and the music should welcome them too. And they should feel our mission is that they can feel the love of God um, through music, and that is what is helped me as a person to make adjustments and I in how I interact with others and help them to feel the love that is here. And that is a constant, I would say, teaching and reteaching, learning and relearning, no, and constant adjustments, and that keep us humble. You know, we are not already there, but it's a constant renewal, as a constant commitment, and constant keep learning and, getting better and falling again and getting better. And and I'm so learning that and thankful that God uses us, even though that we are not perfect by any means, and it still is so nice that God is using us and be an instrument in their hands and in God's hand, and it's a privilege, and so that helped me in my personal life.
Well, Manuel, thank you for taking the time to do this interview.
Thank you for helping us because you are part of our music team, and your ministry has really make a big impact, a difference in what we do, and we are very thankful for what you do.
Well,
And I hope our people knows that you are a big part of our team. And
thank you. And I enjoy being part of the team. I really do. I, I love to hear the choir, and I love to hear the power of the music that you choose and the enthusiasm that you and the choir have. It really adds to our service in a way that's just unimaginable.
Thank you.
Really, thank you, Manuel.
Thank you. And I want to thank also all the team members because they are wonderful. And they are the ones that do all the job. We all together do a great team. And I'm very thankful for each of them. And I want to name all of them because they are a long list, but they know that how much we appreciate them.
Yeah.
And they are wonderful.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. Okay.
Thank you.
That's it. Here.